All right, so hi, this is going to be one of a couple of videos that you're going to be watching. This one is a little bit about tooling. It'll probably be about 15-20 minutes long. What happened is yesterday I needed to convert all of my all the teachers in my program, and I've got about 60 of them. I had to download all of their repos, all of their GitHub repos. And so what I needed is I needed a line like this for each of them. Git clone, and then git at github.com, and then then the name of then stuff here, followed by their username, and then .git. And I could type that in for all of them, but that's going to be forever. Now for all of you, I have a little script that does this. And a lot of times I'll do scripts to do things, particularly for you, since I'm doing it for every lab and every assignment. But for my teachers, I'm only doing it once. And I keep reusing the same repository, so I only have to do this once. And so in that case, I wanted to do it, or I felt it was easier just to do it in my editor, and my editor is Emacs. And it got me thinking that I wanted to show you how I do this in Emacs. I know a lot of you don't use Emacs, but the point is you use some editor. You may use VS Code, or you may use Vim, or you may use something else. But the point is you should know your tool, and this will show you the types of things you can do with Emacs. So if you are an Emacs user, you'll learn these things over time. And if you're not, you should look at these types of features in your own editor. So let's jump in. Now, this data isn't real data. These are like, you can think of these as last name, first name, username. But it's fake data. I created it using a website called Mockaroo, and Mockaroo, and there are others out there, will create a whole bunch of fake data. You can just click on, I want a name, an address, an email, or whatever, and it generates it for you. And I edited it a little bit, so notice that it's last, first, username, and we can pretend that's a GitHub username. But for some of them here, like Alphonse, I added Alphonse likes to be called Al, or maybe Deborah likes to be called Deb, which is all fine. But the point is that it makes it irregular. What I did is I literally, for my teachers, they filled out a Google form, so it was in a Google spreadsheet, and I literally cut and pasted it into Emacs, and so I had different numbers of columns, and I want to get that to be consistent. The other thing is, I could have saved it as a TSV or a CSV, and that would have put the commas or a single tab between things. But I didn't. I cut and pasted it, so I didn't know if it was like, gee, is this going to be one space or multiple spaces, or is this going to be tabs and spaces? I wasn't sure, and if I'm doing something programmatically, this can be a little tricky, if it's not consistent. So anyway, this is one way to handle this, and I'll show some nice editor features along the way. So first, I want to get rid of all of the tab spaces and just make each of them a single space. And to do that, I'm going to use a search and replace, but not a regular search and replace. I'm going to use something called regular expression search and replace. And that's replace regex in Emacs. And a regular expression is kind of like, instead of saying replace A with Q, you can say replace any digit with something else, or replace a sequence with something else. You can use patterns. So the pattern I'm going to use here is I'm going to say anything that's a space or a tab, and multiple of them, and you'll see how it highlights them, even like under Alphonse, where I put multiples in, and I'm going to replace those with a single space. So that's that, and now everything is a single space. Now the next thing I've got here is I've got, notice that when I'm using my Git line, I want to have .git at the end of each username, and I could go to each line and type .git, and that's going to be annoying. So instead, I can do another replace regular expression, and in this case, I can replace the $, because $sign represents the end of each line, and I can replace each of those with .git, and so now that's done. So again, just by knowing these features, I very quickly made some changes. So now the next part of this is I want to turn these into lowercase. Because I wanted my I want my directories. I really don't want this to be git clone to the. I don't want to see like P Francescuccio for the username. I want to see. Well, actually, I'll do this with Al again. I want the output to be Gwinnett Al or Alphonse, so I know who it is by seeing the name. But I want it to be lowercase. So in order to do that, I've got to convert all these uppers to lower cases, and I can do that in Emacs with a macro. And a macro is basically a keyboard recording. So I hit F3 to start, and what I'll do is I will say here, let's say escape X down case word, and then I will do escape X down case word again, and then I will go down to the next line and back to the beginning. So I'm just using, and notice I don't do it a third time because I don't want to change the username. So then I hit F4 to save the macro, and actually now this is not going to quite work right, but I'll run it anyway, is this only is going to do the first two names. And I could run this through, and there's a way of basically repeating this over and over again, but I'm just going to, since I know there are no lower cases in my usernames because of the way I created them, I'm just going to downcase the whole region. And notice I know that I didn't get the Gwinnett, but that's fine. So now the next thing, and this is maybe the coolest feature I think I'm going to show you, is notice that I've got here Alphonse Al Gwinnett, or later on I got Deborah Deb Rotter, and I want all of these to be the same. I want Alphonse Al Gwinnett to either be Alphonse Gwinnett or Al Gwinnett. Now, if I've got thousands of these, I could start page upping and page downing and going through each at a time, but that's crazy. That's going to take forever. So instead, I'm going to use a feature in Emacs called occur. And what occur will let me do is it will let me look for a regular expression throughout a file. And so notice that my file, each of my line is going to be a bunch of characters, which is dot plus, followed by a space, and then a bunch of characters, which is dot plus, then a space, and then a bunch of characters. Now this should be all my lines, especially since space is a character. But some of my lines will have an additional space. So like Phoebe Francescuccio only has two spaces, so it'll only have this space and this space, except, and then more stuff at the end, except Alphonse Al Gwinnett will have three spaces. So all of the lines that have more than those three words in them, last name or first name, last name, and then the username, are going to be the ones I want to find. So I hit enter there, and notice that it brings up this buffer, which has all of the lines. So they're all in one place. And I can navigate here. Notice that I can find each of them quickly. And I could now, edit each one. I could be like, oh, and the first line, obviously is just for sample purposes. I could go here and then I could go and change this line, but that's going to be ugly and annoying. Instead, there's a really cool feature here, and I can use macros in here too if I want, but I won't. Is I can just hit the E key for edit mode, and then I can literally edit the lines. And if you look at the upper window, you'll see that it's really editing the file, and there I'm done. And so this is one of the really powerful features of Emacs, this idea that if you have a whole bunch of things all over your file that you want to mess with, you can do this occur to find all of them and then edit them all together. Or you can even copy and paste, because that occur buffer on the bottom is just another editable buffer. And you can also use occur across multiple files. So if you have like 10 files up, you can do that. Really, really cool feature. So we're making good progress here. We now have to change this because since we want our line to look like that up top, we want to have the names at the end and the P, Frances, whatever at the beginning. And I'm actually going to, just for ease, I'm just going to mark all of these. And I'm just going to sort the lines. for no particular reason. I'll save this meanwhile. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to move Arial and Jerkovic to the end, but I also want the Jerkovic to be before the Arial with an underline. So I'm going to do this with another macro. So I'm going to do F3 to define the macro, and I'm going to find the space, and then I'm going to kill the next word and delete a space there. Go back to the beginning, yank the word back, put in the underline, go back to the beginning, kill the word, undo that because I don't want to do that. I'm going to mark, I'm going to search for the space, go back and kill the region, kill the space, go to the end, put in the space, and then yank. And that was a lot, so then I'm going to go down and I'm going to hit home to go to the beginning of the next line. So that was not the most efficient, but it just recorded all my keystrokes. I'm going to save it. And now every time I hit F4, notice that, and let me go to the next one. And this is going a little slow, but that's okay. But notice Alyssa McKenzie is going to then be, it's going to then move the A McKenzie 14 git to the beginning, and it'll be McKenzie underscore Alyssa at the end. And we're done. And the cool thing here is I can even say, by using a special keystroke, just run this till the end. And it's going to take a little time because I think I have a package running that's interfering with some of the things I'm doing. I'm not entirely sure, but you'll see that it's doing all of these conversions, albeit a little slowly. So anyway, so far so good. We are almost done with this this process. All we have to do when this is done is add the beginning of each line, which has the the .git the git clone stuff. So we're just going to let this run for a few seconds, and I'm just checking the time. We are now at 12 minutes, so good. We should be done in about 15 minutes. And again, I really don't know why this is going so slowly. It's like, it usually, when you run a macro like this, it's usually bang. So something weird is going on with this, but it's not worth figuring out for our purposes. Now I could stop this if I wanted to by hitting Control G, but I'll just give this another, I'll give it 20 more seconds, and then if it doesn't finish by then, we'll just stop it. All right. Yeah, I'm just going to stop it now because it's fine. It's good enough. And I'll just get rid of the lines at the end because this is just for demo purposes. But even if it does take a while, it's not hurting me. I'm just sitting around doing nothing. So anyway, now we're almost done. We just need that git clone stuff at the beginning. And we could do another macro. We could record the macro, type it in, and then just keep hitting the F4 key to run it. But the other thing I can do is something called string rectangle. And that would be git hunter classes assignment dash, and that's it. And that's pretty much the whole deal. And git. Well, here's a problem: is it's git and git at. I didn't put the clone in. So again, two ways I could solve that. One is I could do a search and replace. I could say search for git space and replace it with git clone. But let's just go for these few. I'll just do another string rectangle of putting in clone. Or I could have said here replace string git space with git space clone space. So there are multiple ways of doing it. But anyway, the point is that getting to know your tools, rectangular editing, occur, regular expressions. I did this all, just like within a minute or so when I did this with the real data set, and I had my little set of lines that I could then run this file as a script, and everything was done. So get to know your tools. That's it for this one. The next video is going to be, if you're in 135, it's going to be a little bit about input validation, and if it's 235, the video is going to be a little bit of a review of memory. All right, so again, learn your tools, learn Emacs, learn VS Code, whatever it is. And that's it.